Hello and welcome back to the space between ideas. I'm Blaine Case. In the wintertime in Georgia, it is now almost 2:30 in the afternoon. I can see these beautiful mountains in the background. My little doggy dog is next to me, and he had his little snack and his little walk around outside. I had my snack and was able to consider the differences between cheese and apple compared to cheese with lettuce and bread. There's a distinct change of the flavor of the cheese and the experience. After that, I looked at my crazy beard and thought about how strange it is that I have hair growing out of my face. Hmm. All right, now I'd like to move into the next section of this little experience that we've been having today and over the last several years. So, this video is a continuation from the last video. Let's just jump in right away. So, this is the educational courses. So, these educational courses are basically um, I've been working like a coach and a teacher for the last 5 years. And I started out this by teaching Tom Buchholz's work from his book called Create Crucial Insight. And what happened was that I taught his book to over 500 people, and well, something like that. I taught over 500 people, and some of those people I taught things from. I mean, logically, we can break it down to something more specific, but it's just a little easier just to say I taught it to 500 people. I taught something from this book to at least 500 people. And over that experience, I found that some people resonate with some ideas and some people resonate with other ideas. And one of the biggest problems that I had was that after teaching his book to, let's say, for example, I have this one French student, and he's very, very smart. And I got through all the content, and then he was like, okay, so what's next? In fact, we could go back to the original, the OG, Bernardo. So one of my first students, when I very first started out 5 years ago, was Bernardo from Brazil. Now he's a senior manager at Capgemini. And um, he was like, okay, I'm interested in improving my English. I'm interested in learning about these thinking tools and these thinking techniques. And I said, all right, let's do it. So we went through Tom's book. Now, after getting through Tom's book, he was kind of like, okay, so what's next? And I was like, I don't know what is next. I don't know. And that forced me to start to like pull together more resources and then test those resources with people in order to help them to understand a variety of thinking tools and thinking techniques. And through this process, what I noticed was that there are some tools that are better than others. There are some tools that I would go back to time and time again. And then I created a process for teaching. So then I take people through my courses, and then as I take people through these courses, then I notice that some people like certain ideas better than others. Also, as I was building my large tool, Project Arrowhead, I can see how these fit within this overall tool. So there's a large tool called Project Arrowhead, and then there's all of my courses and other people's ideas and my ideas that fit within this standardized tool. But now we're trying to create a specialized tool and one that is going to be useful for the weakest of weak and the lowest of low. If you are at home and you're full of anxiety and you have all kinds of psychological problems and you have lots of issues, this tool will work for you. What will it do? It'll help you to identify tasks and turn them into subtasks and then pick a priority. Because that's what life is all about. That's it. That's life. Life is a process of making a decision about what you are aiming for, then taking that thing that you've aimed for and breaking it down into a series of steps. And as you take those steps, you have to prioritize which steps you're going to take. And as you come up with visions to work toward, you have to decide which visions should be prioritized. And that's life. So the tools for everybody. But now, how is it that you actually? What's the education behind this tool? So we have something called functionality and we have implementation. So in today's video, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you the backbone of this experience. How are we going to do it? So my plan for today is to open up a Gemini and leave it on Pro. Thinks longer for advanced math and code. Solve complex problems. What's the difference between thinking and Pro? Wow, this is weird. I never really realized there was a difference between thinking and Pro. For math and code. Well, we're not doing math and code, so I think we'll just go to thinking. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the microphone, and we're going to do an experience today where what my objective. Okay, I'm just going to talk directly to Google. So all right, so bye everybody. I'm going to talk to Google now. Okay, can you hear me? All right, so today the objective is that we want to calibrate you. You're going to be my assistant. And so before we start, I want you to write a prompt. And then, I don't know, you can tell me whether you want me to copy and paste the prompt that you have created back into the chat wall in order for you to use the prompt to calibrate yourself, or if you creating the prompt is enough for you to understand and to calibrate yourself. Our objective today is that I want to create the backbone for an educational process. The idea behind the educational process is that I want to create a manual, and the manual is going to be like a side by side. So there'll be a left side and there's going to be a right side so that people can see the part that the teacher is going to be reading and facilitating, and also see the student side to prompt the student with help to get through the content. And then the student is going to be able to see the student side, which will have some questions and which will have some content. And this is about a role play, because after some time, like after a student has gone through the student experience, then eventually they will become a teacher, and then they'll be able to facilitate the experience for other people. So this whole facilitation experience is based around the idea of two core educational ideas. One is about functionality, meaning you want to learn how the human brain functions and how the principles that we need to understand in order to improve the functionality of the brain as it relates to getting things done, achieving tasks, and achieving breaking down tasks into subtasks, and then prioritizing which subtasks to go after to accomplish through action, and then also to decide which tasks to pursue and to prioritize those tasks. And by prioritizing tasks and prioritizing subtasks, then people will be able to get more done. And so the idea is action. Before we're able to take action, we want to understand how the functionality works. So we're going to learn about that functionality. And then the next thing we're going to do is the implementation. So after we learn how the system all works, then we're going to put those system pieces together into the implementation or the doing. We can improve over time. Now, that might not be the best way to separate these different tasks. That might not be the best way to separate the courses. But anyways, this is how we're going to do it. And there are basically 5 units. There's 3 units in the functionality course, and there's 2 units in the implementation course. So let's begin. The functionality course is going to have three main ideas. The first idea is called the Buchholz drive model. The second idea is the Fogg's motivation model. And the third is the deliberate practice model. Two of these models are, well, all of these models are produced by people, um, educators and philosophers and physicists, people who are producing some research in the field. And so I don't know what's going to happen in the long term, but certainly for now, we can discuss these as ideas and as things that can be helpful for people as they grow and develop. Then we are going to move to the implementation course, which is going to focus on the hook, the concept of the hook, how we combine things to create the to get people to develop habits. And then finally, we're going to talk about the process value chain. So we're going to talk about how we can create processes. And well, I'll go more into detail of all these different courses. But before we do that, I want you to create that prompt for yourself so that we can get you calibrated to help me in this process. And then give me instructions for what you want me to do next. And also, what I'm going to include, if you're interested in the idea, is I do have a list of commonly used methods that are used for teaching and other methods which are used for teaching. I'm going to just upload that right now. And if you'd like more details, I can give you more details about that list. So just tell me what you want to do next and we can continue. All right, so now this the methods I can use, it's actually more copyright. I got lots of copyright. I just want to see if you can hear this audio. I want to listen to this guy. I'm gonna push listen, then I'll test the audio.
This sounds like a brilliant project. You are essentially building a train-the-trainer ecosystem where the curriculum itself serves as the apprenticeship. I understand the agriculture element here as the cultivation of the mind and habits. To answer your question, you do not need to copy and paste this back to me. Once I generate this prompt and you confirm it looks right, it becomes the operating system for our entire chat session. The calibration prompt. This is the internal instruction set I will use to guide my responses moving forward. Role: lead instructional designer and educational assistant. Project goal: create a side-by-side manual, teacher-student, for an educational process focusing on brain functionality and task implementation. Curriculum structure: Course 1, functionality, the how it works. The Buchholz drive model, the Fogg behavior model, the deliberate practice model. Course 2, implementation, the doing, 4. The hook, habit formation, 5. The process value chain, workflow creation, design framework, the side-by-side layout. Every page must account for what the teacher says, does, left, and what the student sees, answers, right. The progression, content must support a transition from student to teacher, role-play ready. Methodology, integration of the provided methods I can use, list, e.g., likenings, buzz sessions, case studies, role-playing. Core objective, enable students to understand brain function to better break down, prioritize, and execute tasks through action. How I will format our work. Since you mentioned a side-by-side manual, I will use a table format to help us visualize the pages as we build them. Here is a quick sample of how I'll present the content to you. Teacher side, facilitation, student side, interaction, objective. Introduce the Fogg model. Key question: why is it hard to start a new habit? Activity: use a comparison from your list between a seed and a task. Visual: a diagram of the B equals map formula. Script: today we are looking at why we do what we do. Task: list one subtask you've been avoiding. Next steps: what I need from you. I am now calibrated and ready. To begin building the functionality course, please tell me, which unit do we start with? I recommend starting with the Buchholz drive model as it sets the foundation for functionality. The context: When you think of the Buchholz Drive model in this agricultural context, what is the number one aha moment you want the student to have? Methods preference. From your list, chalkboard, stories, case studies, etc. Are there 2 or 3 methods you are most partial to for this specific unit?
All right. Well, I'm not sure that it got 100%. Now, if we go back to this methods I can use, this is from a book from my church, and the book is called it's called Teacher No Greater Call. And now, okay, so here we have the activity sheets, activity versus application techniques, attention activities, audiovisual material, brainstorming, buzz session, case studies. So this is actually the pages which explain like what all these things mean. So I'm just gonna copy that. And let's jump back here. Okay, so add these details when you're creating pages. Then hold for more detail. All right, there you go. So I'm just gonna upload all that. Which means I can close this one. Now let's take a listen to this one. Well, okay, anyways, it says I've received and processed these extensive details. I've integrated specific descriptions, examples, how-to instructions for each method, activity versus for younger learners, buzz sessions, case studies for adults in my calibration. I'm particularly noting the likening and object lesson techniques as they will be powerful in translating complex scientific models into agricultural. What's with this agricultural metaphors? Did I mention anything about agriculture? All right, so I can just close up those windows now that we have these details done. All right, let's start with the Buchholz Drive model. Just one more thing I wanted to mention before we get started. All right, there's just a, okay, so this happens sometimes when you're using AI. Okay, so there's one more thing I wanted to mention, which is basically that I don't want you to produce this textbook in the form of an Excel spreadsheet. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have a Google Doc on the side, and so when you print some details, like when you create the lesson and the lesson content, then I'm just going to copy the text directly from what you produce, and then just tell me whether to paste it on the left-hand side of the screen or the right-hand side of the screen. And then because if you keep producing Google Sheets, it's actually going to make it difficult for me, because then I'm going to have to copy and paste from the Google Sheets. And then what am I going to do? Paste it from the Google Sheets into a Google Doc. So what's the point of that? Why don't you just tell me like the content, and then I'll just paste it directly from you here, and then I'll paste it to the Google Doc. All right, so now we don't have to put in too much detail, but we need to put in enough detail to create the backbone of the course. And then I'm going to tell you about all the details of the course, and then you're going to help me to build the backbone of the course, and then we can add on to that structure in the future. But for today, I just want to get all the details from all the course material and have it in one unified document. All right, everybody. So this is something interesting from the Buchholz Drive model. Now, this incorporates both the Buchholz Drive model and also, so in Tom's book, it's called State Drive. So that's on the left-hand side. This is called State Drive. And then on the right-hand side, it's called state styles. So I took these two models from his book, and I think that they can be incorporated in order to create better performance evaluations. Everyone's always talking about like how do we create a great performance evaluation? And I think that Tom has great. Uh, he's got the math behind it, and this is what it looks like. All right, so let's say that this little box here is level of effort. This little box here is level of success. This one's level of automation, and this is level of optimization. So we got optimization, we got automation, we got effort, success. These are the four factors that influence your ability to create outcomes, recognizing outcomes. So that's the key: is how do we recognize the outcomes? How do we get better outcomes? When it comes to people, we call it performance, and when it's systems, we can call it work styles. So with people, there's basically a level of effort and there's a level of success. That's what describes performance. And with systems, it's a little bit different actually. It's not necessarily the level of optimization and the level of automation. I mean, yeah, maybe. So optimization, it means like how well does your system work? And then automation, it means like how much energy is needed to produce that outcome. And then how much of that energy can be delegated to something that can do it without your direct supervision or decision-making processes. So this is an engineering process. On the right, this is systems and machine engineering, and on the left, this is human engine. This is being a mentor. Now, if you'd like a copy of Tom's book, you can click this PayHip. I think it still works. Let's see if it still works. It still works. So if you click this, you can get a copy of Tom's book, Create Crucial Insight. All right. This is what I teach to my students that I teach. The first thing we talk about is the question is what makes an effective manager. Oh, it's so marvelous of planning. Did you ever see this one? So if you go to TikTok, you go to Digitally Baffled, and there's actually 3 clips. One is called Deadline Mode. I think Deadline Mode was the most famous video, and then after that, then they made these other 2 clips. Basically, they create a plan, but they don't actually take action until Parkinson's law is triggered. And Parkinson's law is basically the work expands to fill the available time. This is why we have to create deadlines. Now, this is not actually part of my application. I don't actually create the end date. I create the start time. So inside of the app, Qubit, there is the to-do list, and in the to-do list, you can create tasks, and then you can also create an alarm to begin the task. But there isn't an alarm for like how to do the task within a certain amount of time. Maybe that could be added, but for now, I'm not worrying about it. That's why I'm gonna keep on moving past this. All right, so here we go. So level of effort. What's the difference between time, focus, and grit? And there's a TED talk by Angela Lee Duckworth about grit. So this is Tom's work, and Tom says that level of effort is. He says there's something called diligence, and there's something called diligent and laid back. Diligent is meaning that there is enough time, enough focus, and enough grit. And laid back means there's a lack of time, there's a lack of focus, there's a lack of grit. This is what we call level of effort. Oh, I gotta turn on my AI. All right, that's great that you produced some text above, but we're not going to use any of that. So I want you to listen to what I'm saying now. And based on what I'm saying, then I want you to just clean up what I'm saying and then also use those teaching techniques that I mentioned, and then create the teacher version of the textbook. And then after you create the teacher version, then I want you to refer back to the teaching methods that I mentioned, and then help me to create the student version. So then we're going to be able to cut and paste the teacher version. We're going to put it on the left side of the Google Doc, and then we're going to do the student version. We're going to paste it into the right side of the Google Doc. So I want you to facilitate this experience with me. But the first thing I have to do is I have to actually teach you about this thinking model, and you're going to follow my direction, and I'm going to tell you what is going to be taught. Are you ready? All right. So the Buchholz drive model, this concept of effort, and effort, it can be broken down into time, focus, and grit. So let's use a little metaphor here, and the basic metaphor is a farmer. So we have a farmer, and the farmer, this is like, 1,000 years ago, and the farmer is just using some very primitive tools in order to dig holes in the ground and put seeds in the ground. And one day he has a friend that is a carpenter who makes tables, and he has another friend who is a blacksmith and he makes armor. And he says to his friends that are his blacksmith friend and his carpenter friend, he says, "Hey, listen, I'm a farmer. And what I noticed is that I'm doing this work with these very, very simple tools. And what I want to do is I want to be able to uh, I want to be able to do this work. I want to be able to transfer my effort. I want my effort to be more effective. And so how am I going to do that? How am I going to make more? How do I get more? Uh, how do I get more outcomes? How do I get better outcomes from my farming activity? How can I use tools?" And then his friends are like, "Well, um, you, we noticed that actually you don't do any work at all. Like you're asking us to do work. You want us to create some magical tool, and this magical tool is somehow gonna help you to do your work." And he says, so the farmer's like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he said, "Well, like from let's say that you were gonna like between 0 and 6. So 0 is like low level of effort. A 6 is a high level of effort. So like you could say that 0 is like red, the color red, and then 2 is kind of like orange, and then 3 is like it's orange, but it's almost like a yellow orange, and then 4 is a yellow, and then 5 is like a yellow green, and then 6 is a bright green. So you see how you have all these different colors. Red means that like you have a very low level of effort, and green is a very high level of effort. So from 0 to 6, or from red to green, like how much how much effort do you feel like you're putting into this this um this activity, this farming activity? And the farmer says, "Well, if I had better tools, then I would be able to put in more effort." And they said, "Well, it's not actually about the tools, because you can have different tools, but we're not talking about tools right now. What we're talking about is time, focus, and grit." So what's the difference between time, focus, and grit? Time can be calculated in hours. So, number one, Mr. Farmer, how much actual time do you spend in your field each day? And then the farmer said, "Oh, well, I spend about an hour maybe." And they said, "Okay, so you spent 1 hour." It's now like, if we look at the farmers in our village, like who is the hardest working farmer? Who puts the most amount of time in their field every day? And they say, "Oh, it's Jacko. Jacko puts he puts 14 hours into his field every day." and his field, yeah, but he has to put in 14 hours because his field is 14 times bigger than my field. Okay, well, I have a question for for you. So is Jacko's field, is it 14 times larger than your field because he puts in 14 hours every day? Or is his field, or is he putting in 14 hours a day because his field is 14 times larger? So what came first? And then so for example, let's take a look at your field. So what I noticed is that in your field, you had you used to have a bigger field. And I noticed that you only put in an hour of work each day. And then what happened was that your field, it got smaller and smaller until now your field is only big enough for a person who does 1 hour of work a day. And the rest of your field doesn't produce anything. And he said, "Oh, yeah, okay, I see what I mean. What you mean." So now that the farmer said, "Okay, so then we're not going to focus on making tools right now. Let's figure out how to increase my time." So the man says, "I'm going to set a goal and I'm going to go out in my field for 2 hours a day. I'm going to do 2 hours a day." So he started going out in the field for 2 hours a day. And then after a couple of weeks, his friends came back to him and he said, "Hey, well, did your field get any bigger? Did you do any more work?" And he said, "No, it's exactly the same. Nothing changed." They said, "What? What are you talking about? How could it even be possible that you're putting 2 hours a day in the field, but you have the same outcome?" And they said, "Well, so what happens is I get out into my field and I don't know, I just like I work for a little while and then I lose focus. And then like I start scrolling on social media and they say, What's social media? This is the Roman times." And then they say, "Oh, okay, sorry." And then he said, "Well, I just like I start looking into other people's fields and then I just think about how this is probably it's never going to work for me. And I don't know if I can actually put in that effort. And I think about other things that I would rather be doing. And at the end of the day, I just have a hard time focusing on this farmer work." And and also, yeah, so they said, "Okay, so we have to find some way to help you increase your focus." He said, "Yeah, let's do that. Let's figure out how to increase my focus." And they said, "Well, is there anything else that influences my level of effort?" And then he said, "Yeah, there's one more thing." So the carpenter and the blacksmith, they said, sometimes what happens at the end of the day is that, that piece of furniture, we have to get it done. Like there's only an hour left of work and we're focusing and there's my client is coming very soon, or the blacksmith says the war is coming, it's coming very soon, and so we have to put all of our focus and effort, and really we have to get it done no matter what. And they said sometimes when you feel like quitting, you have to be able to put in a little bit of extra time. You have to be able to focus a little bit more. And what this takes is called grit. And if you can put in that grit, then you'll be able to accomplish things when other people quit. Grit is the ability to continue when it's difficult and other people quit. And they said this is the secret of effort. So the farmer said, "Wow, that's really interesting stuff." And he said, "Well, I'm really glad that you guys told me all that stuff. And, um, it's really great. But can you just do what I said? Because like I was really more interested in like if you can create some tools because the tools that I'm using there, it's just I don't really want to put in that much effort with these tools because I just feel like there's a smarter way to get this done." And they said, "Well, all right. So since we're finished talking about effort and it seems like you're not really satisfied with our explanation, let's continue and let's talk about level of success." Before we talk about levels of success, I just wanted to go through a couple of questions that we can talk about between the students and the teacher to let's talk about some aspects of life in general and let's talk about the level of effort with the following questions. Words down. So with that, excuse me. Ooh, you. All right, so I got this Google Doc open. This is a powerful narrative. You're You've used likening and a visual comparison, the color spectrum, to explain the internal mechanics of effort. Below is the teacher version of the lesson. It's designed to paste into the left side of your Google Doc. I've incorporated the specific training methods. You've listed attention to activities, likening, case studies to show how the teacher to facilitate the story. Left side version. Okay. All right, so yes. So I don't want to lose any momentum. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have the left side, the right side. Now this is actually my same file. So I'm just going to keep it in the same file. And just paste that in there. Pop in the right side. Okay, now I don't know if it's perfect, but I'm not really too worried about that. What I'm worried about is, can we maintain momentum? All right. So let's jump into those. Okay, so I just want to jump into the question that we can discuss about time, focus, and determination for getting jobs done. So can you tell me about a task that you think is boring and another task that you think is motivating? Tell me a time when you felt bored and you didn't like doing the task. And tell me about another time when you felt motivated and you really liked the task. What was the difference between those two experiences? Number two, when you were working on those boring tasks, what did you have to do to get yourself to become more focused? And when you were working on those motivating tasks, what was it about those motivating tasks that captured your attention? And how did it feel? Was it easier to be focused, or was there something that grabbed your attention? Number three, when you think about some of the things that you should be doing, maybe it's your homework, or maybe it's an assignment that you've been given, or maybe it's something that you don't want to do. How do you decide if you are spending enough time doing it? Number four, when you look at some of the tasks that you're told to do, or things that you even want to do as it's a task that you've decided to do on your own. Um, do you ever find yourself not completing tasks and not making real progress in the work that you're working on? And what is it that you do in order to force yourself to complete the tasks, to increase your determination to complete the tasks, and to really feel like you've done a good job and also that you have completed the job? If you were going to rate yourself between those different colors, red or orange or yellow or green, where do you put yourself in the diligent and laid back scale in general? And then if you're going to use that scale, can you tell me about some of the things that you do, some of the tasks that you do that you would put into the red, and other tasks that you do, you'd put into the orange, and other tasks which you're asked to do or that you've decided to do on your own, that you'd put into the yellow. And what would you put into the green? Green. And what are some strategies for moving from laid back to diligent? What are some ways that you can try to move some of those tasks that are in the red and orange? What are some ways that you can motivate yourself to push them up to the yellow and the green? And also, how can you allocate your time differently so that you are spending more time on things that you feel highly motivated to do and that produce outcomes that are beneficial to your life? And how is it that you can move some of those things out of the yellow and green, which are maybe fun, entertaining, but they steal time away and they make it more difficult for you to focus your time and energy on things that will bring you more long term benefit? Teacher side. It has the teacher said and it has the student said in the same one. Would you like to move on to the next part, levels of success, or we should add more methods, activities? Okay, that's a good question. So, in general, then usually we move into the personality section. What's up, Gordon D? Gordon wants to go outside. We just hit his regular. This is usually when he goes outside, so he feels it. All dogs are. They have like an internal schedule. Gordon, are you feeling motivated? All right. So this is things. Some people are interested in people, and then we talk about these things called how I connect with the world around me. What's going on, Gordon? Are you cold or what? So when we talk about people who are interested in things, then the main thing that we're talking about is openness, which is curiosity, creative, novelty, inventive. So you have these inventive and curious. So these are high in openness. I think that there's two kinds of high in openness people. One of these people are called low in conscientious. These are the big thinkers, and the other group are the high achievers. These are the people who are high in conscientiousness. And I think that I always use the example of Steve Wozniak and what's the other guy? Steve Jobs. Now I don't even know if it's actually true or not, but I just like to use these examples just because people think that they understand them, but like me, I think I understand it, but I don't. But anyways, they make okay examples. The idea is that Steve Wozniak was this big thinker. Even now, sometimes I see like advertisements or videos with Steve Wozniak, and he's always like, "Hey, I got this other idea, and then I got this other idea, and then I got this other idea, and I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing that, and here's an idea, and here's there." Like he's always like this. He's this big thinker. He's this crazy scientist who's always just his mind is expanding into the universe, and he's seeing connections, he's seeing overlap of mapping, he's seeing all these things that other people don't see. He's a big thinker. He's not afraid to be wrong. He's like super creative, and he's just like, these are all the things that I see. And then you have the Steve Jobs, who is like the high achiever. So he's the civil engineer. Like it has to work. It has to work in practice. People have to buy this. People have to be willing to buy this. And so he took some of the ideas of Steve Wozniak and then he turned it into something real, a real business. And he kept focusing on that until it was profitable. And then he just took those ideas and he continued to run this business. So that's the difference, I think. That's one way to explain the difference between high in conscientiousness and low in conscientiousness. For the inventive and curious types. And then you have the consistent and cautious. So these people, I believe that it's like consistent, it doesn't equal easygoing. Cautious does not equal careless. Therefore, this little box here, I don't really believe that it exists. I don't believe that there's people who are both low in openness and low in conscientiousness. And even if they do exist, I don't really care, because like that's not like if you're in that box, first of all, I don't really know who you are, and second of all, like, okay, whatever, I don't know. It doesn't help my presentation any to discuss this corner. So let's go down to the bottom right hand corner. So these are people who are high in conscientiousness, but they are low in openness. Now, these are the accountants, the auditors. They're consistent, they're predictable. Now, if that's who they are, then most likely they're not going to be using my tool, because there's something about their personality which enables them to get stuff done. They're already good at creating tasks and subtasks. They're already good at creating priorities. Why? Because they're high in conscientiousness. They're organized and dependable. So they're not really it's not really my cup of, it's not really the group that I'm trying to talk to. Consistent and cautious, these are people that already know how to use a spreadsheet. And if they know how to use a spreadsheet, they're not going to have to use my app. You know, most apps are they're like based on like accessing databases. And if you already know how to use a database, then the necessity that you have to purchase apps, it goes down quite a bit, because you can just create your own database. All right, so then who's my app going to be directed towards? So probably now, if you're a high, I guess that's for these guys. So my app is for these guys. It's for people who are like big thinkers, but they're just having a hard time like focusing on very specific things. My app is for people who are low in conscientiousness and who are inventive and curious. Big thinkers. So it's like a microscope. It's like a magnifying glass. It's a way to get guys who are just like way up in the clouds and get them down on a piece of paper. Increased conscientiousness. All right, but it's not going to be part of the app. Now we go into the Fox motivation. I don't want to go to the Fox motivation model right now. So this is where I want to be. I want to be here. Okay. All right, so let's go back to let's talk about the levels of success. So the farmer, he goes back, you know, a couple months later, after he tries to use these techniques of like, he asked them about like, how can you help me to like learn how to focus better? And then how can you help me to like put in more effort? So then they started like transcendental meditation, and they tried breathing techniques, and then they tried some other, so they tried to look for all these different techniques to help him to improve his level of effort. They tried to figure out how to motivate him, but I don't know, they didn't really figure out how to do it. I mean, maybe we'll come back to this in the future, but for right now, we're just going to define level of effort as just time, focus, and grit, and say that this farmer in the Roman times, he was just having a hard time putting in effort, and he just really didn't feel like that was going to be the solution to his problem. Although he did start to work more diligently, and he eventually reached like a little bit more diligence, because because his friends supported him and they helped him to track his time. And then they also helped him to remove some of the distractions. And eventually he was increasing his level of effort. But the pharmacist guys, like, I know that you think that level of effort is really the end all and be all of life. It's all really about your level of effort, and if you increase your level of effort, you'll become successful. But I just don't believe it. Like, I don't believe that's the end. I don't believe that it's just about my ability to how much effort I'm putting in is going to be directly equal to the outcome. Because, for example, like, if I let's say that there's 2 different models, right? So, let's say that I'm trying to get to Rome. So, from my farm, I'm gonna walk from my farm all the way to Rome. Alright, so then the question is, how is it like, what am I gonna have to do in order to get from my farm to Rome? And you're telling me that all I have to do is put in the effort. Well, there's a couple ways we can look at this. One way we can look at it is like, first of all, am I going the right direction? Do I have a compass? Am I on the right road? Am I using a road? And then, like, do I have a horse? Do I have a buggy? Do I have like a group to protect? Do I have tools to protect myself? Like, do I have all the necessary equipment in order to get to Rome? Like, all of these things are connected to my ability to produce a certain type of outcome and get to reach to a certain type of goal. And so I think we should also really focus on this concept of level of success. So how do you define level of success? Well, one is like ability. Somebody who does not have legs, it's going to be much more difficult for them to get to Rome because they're going to be pulling themselves along the ground. But if you have legs, then you have the ability to walk. You see, so ability, do you have the ability to get from here to Rome? Number two is the skill. So even if you have legs, it doesn't mean you know how to walk. And it doesn't mean you know how to jog, and it doesn't mean you know how to run. So, like, having the ability, meaning you have the actual infrastructure in place. It doesn't mean that you necessarily know how to use the infrastructure. Third is knowledge. So, okay, so do you know the best route? Are you able to read a map? Are you able to read a compass? Are you able to drive your horse and buggy? Do you know how to work with a team? Do you like there's all these different elements of knowledge that you would need in order to get to Rome. And then behaviors. So behavior, for example, like, are you able to eat? Do you know how to eat? Do you know how to walk? Do you know how to manage your time? Do you know the best times of the day to travel and what are the better times to rest? Can you set up your camp? Do you know how to set up your camp and then tear down your camp? So these are various types of behaviors. Can you get along with other people in the group? And then you have your methods. Now, eventually you get to the point where you're talking about methods, and then you start to realize, like, okay, so I think maybe I'm using the same words over and over again because, well, what's the difference between methods and knowledge and methods and behavior and methods and skills and then, well, what's the difference between competency and knowledge? And although I think maybe we could get a dictionary a definition, what's more important here is not necessarily the actual meaning of these words in my specific use case, or in as a list. Sorry, maybe that's what's not important in this case is the list of words and what the meaning of those words mean. But the more important part is, like, what are the meaning of these words in my specific situation? So which of these words apply most directly to my specific situation? And then how can I define what is needed in order for me to improve my level of success? All right, so we can also use the same type of structure as we used in the previous model. So we can have like a red box meaning zero. So we're a very low level of success. We can call this trailing. So if you have two cars, one car is in the front and one car is behind, then one is going to be leading and one is going to be trailing. So if you're in the red, that means you are extremely in a trailing position. And then as you start to increase your ability and skills, then you're going to be able to move to the orange box. And then as you improve your behaviors and methods, then you're going to be able to move to the orangey yellow box. And then as you have the right level of competency, you're going to move to the yellow box. And then as you start to really improve your ability and skills and apply your knowledge, then you're going to move up to the green yellow box. And then finally, as you are able to access tools, then you're going to be able to move into the green box. So all of these things together enable you to improve your level of success over time. And so the man, he says so to his friend, the carpenter, and his friend, the blacksmith. He said, listen, guys, so I'm not actually trying to get myself to Rome. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to cultivate this land. And like the reason that I came to see you guys at the beginning, it wasn't to help me to put in more effort. In fact, I'm willing to put in more effort, but the thing is that I just feel like that my effort is a waste of time because I feel like that we can create some tools. And if we can improve our ability to use tools, then I'll be able to magnify. I'll be able to use exponentials to to create way better outcomes. So, for example, did you ever guys notice that like there's a wheel on a cart, and when the horse is pulling the cart, then we could attach the like some kind of blade that goes into the ground. And so if we could have a blade which is connected to a wheel, then I think that I could push it or maybe even we could attach an animal to it. So if we could create a piece of furniture that has wheels and is also attached to a blade, and then we can connect it to an animal, and I could then control the animal, then we would have an integrated system. So then he started going into this idea of Triz. All right, so let's take a quick look at Triz. What is going on with this? I don't understand why it does that. Which one do you want? I don't want any of these, actually. This one here. Okay, I see what happened. Okay, let's take a quick look at the concept of the evolution of technical systems. So before we jump back into the level of success questions, I just wanted to make a quick detour to the concept of the evolution of technical systems. So the farmer talking to his friend, the blacksmith, and his friend, the carpenter, he said, listen, when we build a technical system, then we need to understand the four elements that create a complete or fully developed system. So we can call these functional blocks. And the first functional block is called a working element. So this is what I mean by the blade. So the blade is the thing which actually is going to be touching the ground. And right now I'm actually using a knife. So I'm holding the knife with my hand and I'm pushing the soil with by my hand acting directly onto the blade, and the blade is working directly into the soil. And so without the handle, if I only had a blade, then we could say that this is the working element. The working element is the blade. And it's that working element which is pushing the soil. Now, because it's a little bit difficult to just use that blade all by itself, then what happens, because right now it's my fingers that are working as the transmission to push the blade into the soil, and it's a little bit difficult. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a handle to the blade. Now, once we have the handle to the blade, now the transmission is the combination of my hand and the handle. The handle is, it's some type of lever which makes it easier for me to push the blade into the ground. But we're still using my arm to some extent, and we're also using my muscle. And what's my muscle doing? My muscle is the engine. So the engine is what is pushing my arm, and my arm and the handle is what's working together to transmit that energy into the working element, which is the blade. And then what is telling the engine and the transmission and the working element what to do? That is the control element. So currently the control element is my brain, and I have to work 100% to direct the handle and to direct my arm in order to make the end result with the working element. So what we want to do, guys, so of course the farmer is still talking with the blacksmith and the guy who makes furniture. He says, guys, so what we want to do is, well, let's talk about that blade. So that blade, we already have a blade, but we need to attach that blade to some kind of structure, some kind of frame. And then we want to be able to move that frame. So right now, most of the power is going into the blade directly from my arm and my muscles. So what I want to do is I'd like to have some kind of structure which is attached to wheels. And then what happens is that the wheels can keep the blade at a certain distance from the ground. And also, then the structure can be attached to an animal, because I don't want to use my body as the engine, and I don't want to use my body as the transmission. So I want the animal to be the engine, and I want the frame or the brace to be the transmission. And then that wheel transmission then is going to be pushing the energy into the blade. So all of these things put together is going to be farm equipment. And then the control element is, yes, I'd still like to be able to control the animal, kind of the same way that we're using to pull the cart when we move things on top of a cart. And then over time, if we can produce it sometime in the future, I don't know, maybe is there some way for us to be able to control that animal without our direct intervention? So I'm not exactly sure how we're going to do that right now, but it's certain that we can definitely build a frame, and then we'll be able to use the animal to pull the frame to work directly on the working element, so that we can stop having to use my fingers and my arms and my legs in order to push the blade into the ground. And all of this, it creates some kind of, what's the word for it? What's the word when you are able to amplify, to harness the powers around you to get the results that you hope to get? All right. So in this way, what happens is, like my farm with so what I'm saying is, like, with the same level of effort that I was putting in before, not necessarily the time. Okay. So, okay. But yeah. So if, like, before I was using 1 hour of work, and I could only manage let's say that I could only manage like 100 square meters of land. But now, if I use this new equipment and attach it to an animal, now I can manage 10, 100 times 10, 1,000 square meters of land with the same amount of time. So then the blacksmith said, "Wow, that was actually quite genius." And the furniture maker said, "Wow, that actually sounds quite amazing." And so as a result, what on Earth who are big thinkers, they're able to understand that the result is not just your level of effort. Yes, of course, level of effort is important, but But if you're having a problem with focus, maybe part of the reason is because you are looking for better tools. You want to design better tools. So this is really the tool is like let's help people to figure out like how can we improve our conscientiousness? And one way to improve our conscientiousness is by improving our these elements. All right, so I just want to paste this into our little thing. All right, so let's do just a little bit more before we take a break. I'm just copying and pasting and stuff like that. All right, so we got to finish this. All right, let's just make sure that the audio is working. Okay, good. So these things, let's talk about these questions. The questions. Let's start with the first one. When you think about work that you're doing, how do you decide on how difficult or simple a task is? Now, the reason why I'm asking this is because we want to understand like the level of competency that is required to complete an endeavor through your own efforts or by managing other people or tools. And your ability to manage other people and your ability to manage tools, in fact, your ability to complete any endeavor, any task, or any subtask is all connected with your level of success. Now, it's not just your level of competency. I mean, but that's one way to kind of sum up the whole of the different words. I mean, competency, it's connected to methods, it's connected to behaviors. Well, I don't know. Maybe competency is your ability to understand it, and behaviors is your ability to act on it. So knowledge is a piece of competency. Skill is probably closer to the connection between behaviors and competency. Ability is kind of very similar to skills. So, yeah, basically, we're trying to understand like your ability to both understand what's going on and then your ability to influence the environment around you. So it's not just it's what level of competency and behavior is required to complete an endeavor through your own efforts or by managing other people and tools. All right, so this is level of success. And so you're going to start looking at like how difficult or simple is this task. And all of the tasks that you're asked to perform are always going to be related to your specific skill level. And then it's when you are able to improve your skills that you can then take on larger and more difficult tasks. Really, at the end of the day, when you ask for a job interview and when you're applying for a job, what they're saying is, "Hey, we have this job, and this job it requires a certain amount of skill and experience." And they're asking, are you in the realm of this skill set? Do you have the requisite behavior in order to be able to produce the outcome which we are hoping that you'll be able to produce? And then a lot of people, some people they'll say, like I'm almost there, I'm getting close to there. And then those people can be interviewed because they're getting close. You know, they're really, really close. And maybe with a little bit of help from a manager, then they'll be able to produce some successful outcome. And then other people are like, yeah, I've already done that. And I definitely do that. And this is how much I charge to be able to do that. And then so that you know you're going to get some kind of guarantee for the output. But then at the same time, this person, because they have so much experience, maybe they're asking for more money. So you, as the hiring body, have to decide on like what level of skill, what level of success, what kind of behavior are you hoping to onboard into the process, and then how much remuneration are you willing to give up in order to have that output resolved through that specific person. So we go back to the original question, which is how difficult or simple is this task? So we always want to make sure that our team is clear and honest about how simple or difficult a task is. And then because that helps us to understand what that person needs to succeed. Number two, are you skilled enough to complete it? So maybe somebody says, yeah, it's a really difficult task, but I have enough skill. I can do it. And then and other times they're going to say, yeah, I can see this is actually too difficult for me right now because my skill isn't quite there. Number three is knowledgeable enough to complete it. So just because you have the skill, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been through the entire process. So as you go through processes, as you complete processes, then you are going to develop your knowledge. So you have a complete knowledge of what it means to begin the task, to carry it through to the middle, and then to do what's necessary in order for it to be done. So, do you have that knowledge? Meaning, do you understand the entire concept and all the tools and everything necessary in order to get it all done? And then, when it takes like individual steps in the process, do you have the skill in order to accomplish those individual tasks? Number four, are you feeling annoyed because it's too easy, or frustrated because it's too difficult? So this is another way to gauge whether a task is too simple or too difficult, whether or not you have enough skill and knowledge to be able to complete it, is the way you feel. So emotion is actually a really good indicator of um, if you're suitable for the task. So one feeling is this feeling of being annoying. A lot of tasks feel annoying, and it's because, yeah, you're definitely suited for that task. You have the ability, you know how to do it. But then maybe you've done it too many times. And so now it's like it's getting to the point where you feel like, well, it's actually not that interesting for me. When it comes to my career or when it comes to this type of behavior, I would prefer to have a new challenge because this specific thing is kind of too easy. And therefore, I feel annoyed. And they're also annoyed because, well, I'm getting paid this amount of money and I know how to do that job really easily. And well, what I would prefer is I would prefer a slightly different opportunity, one which has a little more challenge. And then so I can remove this feeling of annoying from my emotions and I can have a new fresh feeling of a challenge. Or, but then there's the other time where you feel frustrated because, well, now this is way too difficult. In fact, I don't even have the first inkling of how I'm going to start this task and what do I need to do and who do I need to communicate with and what tools are necessary. I really don't know what I'm doing. And so I'm feeling like this is too difficult. And then I start to feel frustrated because then we have this thing called time and we have this thing called expectation. And then it's just, I can't do it. And so I start feeling frustrated. And then a lot of emotions are attached to that. All right. So how are you feeling? Number five, are you succeeding? So how do you define yourself? Like, how would you define yourself? When we talk about these different areas, the red, the orange, the yellow, the green. So where do you put yourself? Are you and what kind of tasks would you put into the red? So what are some things that you're expected to do, but you feel like it's like your ability to be successful is very low. You're definitely in a low level of success or in a trailing position. And then what are some other things in your life where you feel like you have some basic competence and you're starting to put in the behaviors, you're feeling little bit orange about that specific task. And then again, what are some yellow things? So you just feel like you're barely getting over. You're like, yeah, you're succeeding. It's really, really difficult. And maybe you feel really, really frustrated, but at the same time, you are getting it done to some extent. And, it's acceptable. And then what are some other things in your life where it's green? Like you know exactly how to do it. You can get it done perfect every time. You're really great at it. And either you feel proud that you're so good and you're able to do it without any problems, or you're feeling bored because it's become really easy and repetitive. All right. So fill in those different ideas. And yeah. Now remember that when we talk about the concept of ability and difficulty, that there are some elements that which are connected to that. So sometimes things can feel difficult if it's taking more time than you thought would be necessary. And so if you can break it down into smaller bits, then maybe it will feel easier. Also, money. Sometimes things they seem to be like it's taking it's costing too much money in order to get that thing done. So in that case, that's also an indication that maybe it's too difficult. If you have a certain amount of budget that's allocated for that specific task or a series of tasks, and you keep going over budget, then maybe it's maybe this you have a lack of ability. Physical effort. So, if your expectation is for a certain level of physical effort, but then it's taking much more physical effort than you expected, then that's a way to show that maybe it's too difficult for you, or that it may be beyond your ability. Brain cycles. Brain cycles meaning like how long does it actually take your brain to solve this problem? So this is related to when you go to these master's degree level testing, that you have the GMAT and the LSAT, and you have all these different um, tests that people are taking in order to get accepted into different universities. These are IQ tests, and what they're measuring is the brain cycles that are required of you to get the problem completed. And so for people that have higher IQs and that have enough experience, then it'll take fewer brain cycles. They can finish the questions faster. Social deviance. So is it a task that other people are going to look down upon you, or is it a task where people are going to celebrate you? So your personal reputation and how it aligns with your culture is also going to show whether or not it's something that you can do, and how difficult or how much how you feel, how you are going to describe that task or that subtask or endeavor. And then finally is non-routine. So once you have developed a routine, then it's automatically going to feel a little bit easier because you know what to expect. Like when you're driving, sometimes you don't even, when you first start driving, you have to pay attention to every little thing. And then after a year or two of driving, suddenly you're singing with your friends. You're not even, it doesn't even seem like you're looking at the road anymore. You're doing all kinds of things which are taking your attention off the road, and yet somehow you make it to 99.999% of your destination safely. But as soon as you change something, you get into a car which is no longer automatic transmission, but it's a manual transmission. Suddenly, it's a non-routine, and then you're back to stage one. All right, now let's just finish this up with the Buchholz-Strab model. So we got two. I think we got basically two more things that we need to do with the Buchholz-Strab model, and then we can go outside. With my little birdie. Okay. All right. So we've talked about the methodology behind the Buchholz-Strive model. So now we want to look at an image, and I'm going to upload the image to the book so that the people in the book can see it, and then also so that you can understand what I'm trying to explain here. Wow, we're already getting close to 2026. All right, so the Buchholz drive model, it's a little bit different inside of his book, but I've reinterpreted his model to mean that it's a very simple way to understand where you are. So, are you in the red zone? Meaning, like, are you at the cross section of laid back and trailing? So, do you have a low level of effort and do you also have a low level of success? Now, you can say, like, you can create an average, meaning you can say, well, in general, I have a low level of effort and I have a low level of success, which means that you're a panda bear or a koala, right? You're recollecting. You're sitting in your apartment. You're doing very little work. You have very few skills. You're not really understanding what's going on, and you're not sure how to apply your time. And you're distracted by whatever you're distracted by, and so you are just in this bottom left hand corner, and you're not sure what's going on. Like you got punched in the chin, and you got little birds and stars floating around your head, and you're out for the count. So, one key question that comes up a lot is like, is it easier to move first? Like, what's your first move? Is your first move from trailing to leading, or is your first move from laid back to diligent? And I've thought about this for a long time, and I've discussed this with many people. And it seems as though that it's difficult because although you would like to be able to improve your successfulness, what actually has to happen is you have to take action because it's by taking action that you are able to develop those skills. There's this thing called tactile or tacit skill and knowledge, which comes only, it doesn't come from economic models, it doesn't come from the philosophy, it comes from actual behavior. And that's really where the tool Qubit Connect is going to help people because Qubit Connect and also this educational program, it's really to help people to have a mentor, meaning to get somebody to help you through this program, to get you through all of the units of this educational program, and to get you using the app. And once you start using the app, then you're going to start setting your tasks. You're going to be figuring out what are your tasks. Then you're going to break those tasks down into subtasks. And subtasks are supposed to be actionable, meaning that if you're feeling frustrated because you're not really sure where to start, then what you're going to do is you're going to write in your task, and then you're going to turn it into subtasks. And if your subtasks are still, like, if it's still a little bit too difficult for you, or you're not exactly sure how to take action on those, then you're going to click that subtask and then click the button called Qubit. And Qubit is going to create a new row inside of the app, and it's going to create that, it's going to make that subtask into a task. And using AI, it's going to help you to see what are the 4 steps to help you to accomplish that task. And if it's still too difficult, if it's still not actionable, then it's going to take that subtask, one of those subtasks, maybe the first subtask of those 4 subtasks. You're going to click the button Qubit again. And then that is going to turn that subtask into a task, and it's going to give you 4 more. It's going to break it down into 4 more. So the idea is that if you're having a problem with your level of effort, it may be related to your level of success, meaning it may be related to your ability and skills and knowledge. And so rather than trying to improve your level of success by doing your education first, maybe the first thing to do is to break down the specific task that you want to accomplish into smaller and smaller pieces, into something you can take action on. And then once you can start taking more action, your ability to produce more action, your ability, if you can slowly move up from laid back to diligent, then that is what is going to push you up the spectrum of level of success. So if you are recollecting, then yeah, maybe taking a course is a good idea. But even the act of taking a course means that you have to increase your level of effort first. And so really the question that we really want to focus on is how do we improve our motivation? And that's what we're going to talk about in the next section of our course. The next section of our course is the Fogg's motivation model. And Fogg's motivation model is going to help us to really focus on how to move our laid back to diligent. And my argument is that it's only by moving your laid back to diligent that you'll be able to move from a trailing to a leading position, right? So first, if you're in your recollecting, now I'm not talking to you now about average. I'm not saying that everybody is in recollecting for all the things that they should be doing. But of course, if you look at our different lists, remember that when we were talking about level of effort, you wrote down some of your ideas for things that have a red level or an orange level of effort. Now, if those red level of effort and those orange level of effort items are important to you, then you're going to need to figure out ways to motivate yourself to get those things done. And then also we also were looking at the level of success. So you were also able to write down some of the things in your life where you are getting a red level of success and an orange level of success and a yellow level of success and a green level of success. So when it comes to if you have things, if you're writing down the same thing, if it's red for level of effort and red for level of success, then you have to make a decision about like, is this really something that you should be doing? Is it better to focus only on the things in the green area or the yellow area? Are those your natural talents? Are those the things that you're naturally interested in? Is it better to stop focusing on things which are so difficult for you and start focusing on things which are easier for you and where you feel more natural motivation? Or are those things really necessary? If you have like really necessary things which are in the red which are in the red zone, if you're recollecting related, for example, like the three most important things in life are what? Your physical health, your finances, and your relationships. So if you are recollecting related to relationships, and if you are recollecting related to finances, and if you are recollecting related to your health, then it's like this is the really the red zone. These are things that you have to find a way. You have to find a way to feel to get a higher level of effort. You have to figure out ways to develop a higher level of success because life is really about your relationships, your finances, and your health. Like, so if all you have in your green zone is social media and video games and spending other people's money, then it sounds like over the long term that your life may be becoming more and more challenging as you go along. And so let's figure out some priorities, some things that you can put, some things which where you are recollecting or some things where you are striving. And if you are striving, then let's figure out how you can improve that level of success. And if you are recollecting, then let's figure out how we can improve that level of effort. If you're competing, then that means that you're probably in a good position to be a mentor for our program. And you're going to want to help other people that you find who are recollecting and striving. And also competing, meaning that if you are competing, it means that you get to mentor other people. And if you learn about our affiliate program, where you are going to be helping other people and onboarding them to the sales of our app, and if you're going to be helping other people become mentors so that you can earn money from the sale of our app, that means that you will, in time, you'll be able to move from competing to coasting, meaning that with less and less effort over time, you are going to be experiencing more and more success. And some of that success is going to be financial. All right, so let's return back to. Uh, Actually, I think we might be done. So the thing is that I'd like to kind of wrap it up with this little um, image, but on the other hand, I kind of feel like we already did that to some extent. So I'm just going to. The other thing is, I think that we should probably delete this row and delete this row because I think it's better if we just have 4 rows. See, that looks way better. All right, so we got one more box. I think we need to. All right, let's just do this quickly. I got one more thing I want to say. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to say is the first thing that we looked at, which is this people and performance, level of effort, and level of success. So before you start using our piece of software in order to find more success in life by breaking down your life into tasks and then breaking down your tasks into subtasks and then prioritizing which subtasks to work on specifically, then what we need to first do is we need to identify some of the areas of your life that where you want to take action. And so what you're going to do is you are going to take the ideas that we talked about previously. So you have your you have your list of things that are in the red zone and related to your level of effort and your level of success. You have things which are in the orange zone related to your level of effort and your level of success. You have things which are in the yellow zone for your level of effort and level of success, and you have things which are in the green zone for your level of effort and your level of success. So it's time to go back to those units where you did those exercises, and you're going to select some of those items that you want to focus on and you want to think about as we move forward in this course. And it's going to be things that you can apply when you're using our app, and they're also going to be things which you are going to think about as we move to the next unit. So in the next course, we're going to be talking about Fogg's motivational model. And so before we move to Fogg's motivational model, it's important for you to have some things in your mind that you can discuss in order so that you can start to come up with plans for how to apply Fogg's motivation model to your personal situation. So in this last chapter, this last unit of in Buxholz's drive model, please transfer all of the most important information to this final table. All right, there you go. So that's all we can talk out. And it's time for my break as well. Fogg's motivation model by detailing the B equals MAP formula and how it specifically applies to the red zone task. No, I don't want to do that. I got my own way to teach Fogg's motivational model. So I just want to move this and then we'll be done. All right, there you go. Thanks for joining me today. It's for a break. Much well-deserved break. My level of effort has been fantastic, and so we'll talk to you guys later.